Hey guys, I'm Fuller,
I'm Jonah.
and this is Off the Line. Today we're going to be talking about the MLS final, the Premier League. We're going to go over to Louisville City, talk about some big news there. We're going to take a quick peek at the Premier League, see what's going on in the title race. Going to move on to the Bundesliga, talk about some Americans overseas. Then we're going to wrap it up with the Premier League voting on VAR. So let's get into the MLS final. Atlanta just won tonight, 2-0. How did you think of the game went for Atlanta? This was a culmination, at least for me, in 2 years. It just kind of felt like they were going to get a title at some point. And I think tonight was just a capstone of a 2-year event.
Yeah. It definitely was kind of as expected. I was a little bit surprised as how little the ball rolling got going for Portland.
Yeah.
It didn't really seem that they offered very much at all going forward, which surprised me a little bit just because of the talent that they have. But I was expecting an Atlanta win. It was at home. They were the favorites to win last year. They were the favorites to win this year. I think it's fair to say they've been the best team in the MLS the past 2 seasons. So it definitely kind of seemed like it was going according to plan.
We talked about it during and after the game. To me, the best player on the pitch, all 90, well, I guess he played 74 minutes. Josef, Martinez. I couldn't remember that. Goal and assist. A great goal to round the keeper. And then a great flick on by him to find, Escobar at the back post to seal it in the 70th minute. He's clearly been the best MLS player the last 2 seasons, at least the best striker. 35 goals this year. I'm not sure how many goals he had last year. I think it's safe to say...
It's an outrageous goal-to-game ratio.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that, as I said earlier, this is a 2-year thing for Atlanta, and I think that 2 years, it's been kind of marked by the coaching prowess of Tata, along with just an insane partnership you really don't see in the MLS. And if you do, it's not to that same level between Miguel Almiron and Josef Martinez.
Absolutely.
And so, tonight kind of felt like it was great for them to win, but now it has that air over it. Is this the last time they'll play together? Is this the last time we'll see this crazy of a link-up between coaching and players in the MLS? And I don't want to sound like, discredit how many great coaches and players there are in the MLS. But it's just hard, you don't see coaches come into a league, really, in any sport, to a new team and see them dominate like that.
Right.
I don't know. I'm really about it. I'm really about seeing Atlanta win that. What do you think? Where do you think, first of all, Martinez and Almiron, where are they going if they leave? I assume they're going to leave in the January transfer window.
Yeah, oddly enough, Almiron seems to be the, not oddly enough, he's extremely talented, but Almiron seems to be the one that's on the move when Josef Martinez, for me, has been the most important player for Atlanta United this season. I'm sure that he'll have offers. He said just in a press conference, I believe the day before the final, just yesterday, that he's going to be in Atlanta for as long as they want him to be in Atlanta. Almiron, it's pretty much well known. He's been linked with what? Let's see. It was
Newcastle, Arsenal, probably a couple other teams.
Yeah, he's been linked with moves to the Premier League. So I think that we can expect him to be gone by the beginning of next season. Martinez, it seems a little bit up in the air. I would not be surprised at all if he got a move away. But that one doesn't seem as nailed on.
Yeah. I don't and we talked about Newcastle and Arsenal. It'd be cool in theory to see him go to Arsenal, but it just doesn't. We've talked about the system that Emery's running. It doesn't seem like they're really utilizing a number 10. They kind of seem to be just playing one defensive midfielder and then 2 box-to-box midfielders. So I don't think that he would really benefit them. You called it a luxury buy. We talked about it earlier. I think that's a great way to put it. You can say, hey, we just bought this great guy from the MLS.
They play completely different styles, but yeah, exactly. He's similar to Ozil in the sense that he's very much a luxury, creative player.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure where he would fit into that system.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how many minutes he could pull away from players like Ozil and other incredible players that are kind of on the fringe right now.
Yeah, I think if he did go to Arsenal, he would be asked to do a lot of defensive work that I haven't necessarily seen him do in the MLS. I think that could leave him exposed at times. But if you take him to Newcastle, I think he could fit in there well. I'm not really sure who is the main man. And I mean, Matt Ritchie kind of stands out to me as the
They have
standout
Matt Ritchie,
midfielder. But
they have Christian Atsu. They have Kennedy on loan from Chelsea. But
these aren't all big name players.
Exactly. I definitely think these are people that that he would have much easier of a time getting looks at over than some of the players in Arsenal's squad.
Where do you now that the MLS season's over? How do you see Atlanta doing next year? Now, do you see them? If they lose everyone, do you see them repeating? Do you see them putting up a fight? I mean, the league's only going to get stronger. That's just how it goes every year. We get more and more, it seems, exports from foreign leagues, and we seem to get a younger crop of good players every season. Specifically Atlanta. Atlanta's got a couple really good young players like Ezekiel Barco. So I just wonder, what's your take?
No, yeah. I've seen a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of people wondering what the next move is now that Tata looks like he's going to be leaving. We know he's leaving. It looks like he's going to Mexico to coach their national team. We were talking about Almiron, Martinez possibly leaving. But let's just remember that Atlanta United is only 2 years into their MLS life.
By all accounts, they should suck.
And we have to realize the moves that they made previously in the past, over these past 2, 3, 4 years, building to what has become this championship now. And they've really not given us much of a reason to think that they won't be able to find an ample replacement. Yeah. They won't still be able to recruit players of this talent. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen going into next season, what kind of moves they make this offseason. I'm not going to make any predictions at all because I don't know. But they haven't shown me any reason that their higher ups are not capable of picking the ball up where it's going to be left and keep carrying that ball forward.
Closer to home for us, Louisville City's big rival, FC Cincy. Next season, they will be entering the MLS. Do you think it's going to be a rough transition for them? I mean, they did win the regular season championship this year in the USL, and I know that they have just have that diehard fan base. They can fill a 20,000 seat stadium every weekend, but the question is, will the results come? I mean, do you see them having a rough time? I personally think they'll probably not have a great go at it.
I haven't heard about what kind of moves they plan on making, what kind of rumors are out there with what kind of moves they're going to be making in the offseason. I think that assuming that they just go in with the squad they have now, they're definitely going to struggle. But I want to see if the quality of their, as much as it pains me to say this as a Louisville City fan, I want to see if the quality of the culture that they've been able to create in Cincinnati is matched with the kind of moves that they make. With this going into the MLS. So yeah, I'm interested to see what kind of moves they make. It's really going to depend on what kind of ambition they show, how much money they're willing to spend within the restraints of all of the technicalities of buying and selling players within the MLS. But yeah, I don't have the highest hopes either, kind of like you said, just because I haven't heard any big rumors, any big news coming out of that camp, but it'll be interesting to see kind of what goes down.
So shifting back to Louisville City and the USL, Louisville City announced recently they're hiring Mario Suarez from I believe it is the Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville to head up a youth program. And while they haven't released details yet about the youth program, I assume it's going to follow in the same structure that several other teams in the USL have, where they're going to start, taking players from age 13 and 14 and developing them into almost like a pipeline system for Louisville City. And that'll be cool to see because Louisville City does have players that maybe they didn't grow up in Louisville, like Paolo Del Piccolo. I don't believe he's from Louisville, but he plays for Louisville City, played for U of L. But then you also have guys like Richard Ballard who went to Manual. So it's just very cool for me. I think it'd be cool to develop guys. We had Andrew Farrell, went to Atherton, U of L, now plays for the Revs.
Rookie of the year, way back in the day.
Absolutely, yeah. And, maybe it exposes more players like that.
Right.
And I just wonder, does this have something to do with when they hired John Hackworth? It was really on his reputation for developing players at the U.S. men's level. So, do you think this just plays into Louisville City trying to develop itself as not only just a de facto soccer authority in here in Louisville, but just like the sport authority in Louisville?
Well, no, it does kind of seem to follow the trend of bringing in somebody like Hackworth that has so much experience working with youth players. But I think it's just gonna be interesting to see how they kind of find the youth system finds their niche in the soccer youth landscape that already existed in Louisville prior to all of this.
I mean, they've got Mockingbird, Javanon United. They have the Rovers, which is a USPL developmental team. And in addition to that, you also have Bellarmine, Spalding, University of Louisville, who all offer, collegiate soccer paths. So I'm just wondering how are they going to pull players away? How do you get people to turn down Mockingbird or Javanon? Because both of those clubs have been very successful at the youth level.
Right, and will it be exclusively playing for one kind of setup? Who will the opponents be that Louisville City's youth teams play? Will they be playing other youth teams from other USL and other MLS programs, or are they going to be fitting in with other local youth teams like the Mockingbirds and the Javanons? I don't see why, if they're in a separate league with USL and MLS affiliated youth programs in a league of their own, why players couldn't kind of double dip and be within both systems.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's really going to depend on kind of where they find themselves in the niche of the larger landscape of youth soccer in Louisville. But I think that the kind of foundation that was there before this was even announced is already really strong. So I think that does bode well moving forward.
I think, building off that, it's also a great move by Louisville City, because they're saying, we have all this talent here. Mockingbird and Javanon United, they're great. They're great developmental tools for players, but they don't offer, once you turn 18, all right, go to college. I think that's a very cool and different alternatives, especially now that we have NCAA players who are trying to get around, basketball rules and football rules, so they can just go straight to the pros. And I think this offers a path.
Well, that's going to be the really unique thing about it is all of the other youth programs, as you said, youth soccer in America for a very long time, and a lot of people would argue still is geared towards getting kids scholarships and getting into college. For a very, very slim portion of the soccer youth population in this country do they actually have aspirations of doing any more than that.
And I think I don't mean to interrupt you. I think if you're playing college soccer, and this is not a knock on college soccer players, but if you're really, really good, you've been picked up into a youth system, because a lot of MLS teams do have youth systems now. And or the college, at least for U of L, U of L had a couple standout athletes who happened to play in developmental academies for Dortmund or Schalke. And that's why they were so good, is because they come over here and they're 23 years old when they've played against Marco Royce.
Right. But no, this Louisville youth system assumably would be a path to the first team, you would imagine. So it's going to be geared towards a completely different idea. I'm not saying that it's not going to get the same end result. You want to get better, whether it's to get a scholarship or to get a pro contract. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of differences we see, and that it's geared specifically as a track to the first team, you would assume.
Big news out of the Premier League today. Chelsea beat the champion City at home 2-0 off the back of, who scored the first goal?
It was Conte with the first.
Exactly. Nice little rocket into the top of the net. And then David Luiz, just vintage David Luiz header. Felt like it was 2013 again. As a Chelsea fan, you've got to be buzzing. But I think more importantly, where does this leave the Premier League title race? And I think for me, it gives Liverpool a little breath. They're the last undefeated team now. They don't have to play City again for another 2 months, I believe. So they get time to build their squad. They'll probably add a player in the January transfer window. And I think now Pep goes back to the drawing board and he has to analyze, what did I do wrong? What did we do wrong? And every time Pep gets beaten, every time something bad happens to Pep, he just comes back stronger, angrier, and you could tell those City players getting off the pitch today, they were mad. They did not want to be there, and I just feel bad for who they have to play next. What do you think?
Well, I think that saying that City need to go back to the drawing board and completely reevaluate what they're doing would be disingenuous, just because when Chelsea had that pretty tough loss to Spurs a couple weeks ago, I had the same reaction then. People were saying the same thing about Chelsea, back to the drawing board, what changes do they need to make tactically, and I thought that was a bit of an overreaction just because of the results that we've been seeing, and I think the same easily could be said for City. The results that we've been seeing on the field, in general as a whole this season, would not suggest that they need to make any big changes. I think that it could have been down to I know we were talking earlier off camera about how you think Aguero's the best striker in the Premier League. It could have been down to the fact that he wasn't there.
Nor is KDB.
Nor is KDB. Did they started with Jesus up front?
Yes, I believe they started with Jesus up front. Don't quote me on that, but when I peeked in at like the 55th, he was playing there. So
yeah, and despite the scoreline of 2-0, I did feel generally the game was a lot closer.
Absolutely.
Than that would suggest. Conte's goal at the end of the first half was really against the grain, against the run of play. I thought Man City had the far better first half. Chelsea did press intermittently, which I think is what Sarri's asking them to do. There were large periods of the game where Chelsea would completely pull their press off and just sit back. I don't think that was necessarily strictly by City dominating possession. I think that was also kind of by design. But I think the game was a lot closer than 2-0 would suggest.
Absolutely. I watched probably from the 50th, 55th on, and it always just felt to me like City were gonna, when it was 1-0, we're gonna get that equalizer.
Very much
and then
so.
when Chelsea got the second, I still thought this is still, the City team from last year. Like they could easily score 3 goals in 3 minutes, and fair play to Chelsea for holding them off. I don't know how they did it because it seemed like City threw wave after wave after wave of attack. But yeah, like I said, the Premier League title race is on. Also in the Premier League today, Arsenal, 21 games unbeaten. Do you buy Arsenal as a legitimate challenger, or are you dumping that?
I buy Unai Emery as a legitimate coach. I think Arsenal is stacked with talent, having 2 players like Lacazette and Aubameyang both on the same team. When between Man U and Chelsea alone, Lukaku and Morata seem to be having struggles getting
Absolutely.
goals. So just to have 2 players of that quality on a team, I think is huge for Arsenal. And yeah, I think that pretty much everybody could agree that Arsenal's way farther along than we expected Unai Emery to have them at this point in the season.
And I think a lot of that is down to Lucas Torreira. I mean, great World Cup for Uruguay. I mean, some people knew who he was. He wasn't, a household name.
No, very under the radar.
But, I mean, he scored today. Fantastic scissor kick. I'm pretty sure they played Huddersfield today. I don't know. I mean, I've kind of gotten some stick in the group chat because as a United fan, I'll gladly say Arsenal are who I think could easily win the title this year. I know I say easily, like they're not 8 points back in 5th place. And it's also kind of unfortunate, they have gone 21 games unbeaten into 5th place. So, yep. I don't know. I think moving forward, Arsenal don't have a lot of weaknesses. They lost that game to City. I forget who the other loss was to. I don't know. I guess when they play Liverpool will be the big challenge. So
they'll show what their intentions are going through.
Over in Germany, not a lot. A couple American players this weekend.
A couple here, a couple there.
I think we'll just start with the River Derby or Rivier Derby. I don't know. I can't pronounce it. Weston McKennie starts. Pulisic gets 2 minutes. We'll get into that after we talk about McKennie. I didn't get a chance to watch the game. I was watching United play. I was just more or less excited to see McKennie getting minutes. I know that had been kind of an issue at the beginning of this season was he wasn't always featuring.
Right.
But now, I mean, that's their biggest game every year. That's their cup final is playing Dortmund because that's just such a historic fixture.
Right.
And it's just cool to see American players in those big name fixtures.
Yeah.
And it's always awesome to see.
It was great to see Weston McKennie get minutes. It was also great to see him play in the role that he was playing in the center of midfield. Domenico Tedesco, Schalke's coach, thinks really highly of Weston McKennie, obviously giving somebody of his age this many minutes, but he also thinks very highly of him in the sense that he's almost becoming a utility player, where we've seen him play right back this year. We've seen him play winger this year. We've seen him play in the center of the park, which is where I definitely think he's the strongest. So it's good to be seeing him getting those minutes in the places where I would assume that he would be happiest in the center of midfield. So that was really encouraging to see.
And like you said, it does worry me that he gets used in that utility player role because, one of my favorite players at United was Dolly Blind. And I felt like that was what led to his, sale. That's why he's not at United anymore, is because he was so good. He could play left back. He could play right. He could play anywhere in defense. He could play as a holding mid, defensive mid. Saw games where he lined up as an attacking mid. And because he was so versatile and so fluid, he couldn't nail down one spot. And that's what scares me about McKennie. Exactly.
Players, yeah.
Because coaches will say, great player to coach. He'll do what you say, but he's not great at one specific position. Right. He's just okay. So I'd rather see McKennie, like you said, play in his preferred position, get minutes there before he shuffles around the pitch. Because I feel like in the end that can halt development. But the end of the game was marked by 2-minute Christian Pulisic cameo, and what just seems to be another just disappointing week for the young American. I feel like he can't buy a minute if he wanted to.
Yeah, and he came in to replace Jadon Sancho.
He had a goal, scored the game's I believe first goal.
But again, I'll reiterate what I said a couple weeks ago is I don't think we got to be asking why he's not starting over Sancho. Sure, Sancho's playing on the right-hand side predominantly, which is where we know Pulisic is most comfortable. But we have players like Jacob Brun-Larsen that are basically unheard of going into this season that are also getting minutes over him. So you really have to kind of question what he's doing, where he's at in his development. Is this a lull? Like I said previously, he's lost his starting place before and he's gained it back before. So this isn't something that we haven't seen, but it does seem to be kind of prolonged at this point.
Moving over to Werder Bremen, the big story out of Germany this weekend, and just the big story for American soccer, because if you've been following U.S. soccer for a few years, you know who Josh Sargent is.
The chosen one.
The Red Baron, the anointed one. I pray to him every night before I go to bed. Gets his first minutes in the Bundesliga, and that's enough for most people. Most people are fine to go out on the pitch and just, smile and say hi. But no, he has to go out there, and his first touch just has to be a goal. It just gives me too much hope for a U.S. men's team. Because I think this kid's a stud. I think he's 18 years old? 19? I think he has such a high ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. He's strong, he's quick. He seems like he's a good player that's able to hold up the ball well, which is kind of any kind of striker that's thrived in the U.S. system has been able to do that well. But I'm definitely excited to see him get minutes this early in his career. He's super, super young. I believe he's still 18 because I know he signed for Bremen but couldn't move initially because he wasn't 18 yet, couldn't access the work permit yet. So I'm definitely excited to see him getting minutes. Obviously, scoring goals great. But I think it'll be very telling to see if he's called into the January camp.
Yeah.
Greg Berhalter's first camp will be in January, and traditionally, no European players show up. It's almost kind of a thing where if you're a European-based player and you do show up, it's not really a good sign because your club thought it was okay to let you go mid-season.
Absolutely.
Remember, the January camp is not a FIFA-recognized camp, so you don't have to accept a call-up. If you decline a call-up during a normal FIFA...
You get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you can potentially be banned from playing for your national team. So the fact that it's not a FIFA recognized break, it'll be interesting to see whether Bremen lets him go. I would almost rather see them not let him go. That means he'll be more important, more in their long-term plans. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what that looks like.
Back over to the Premier League, not necessarily for an on-field issue, but an off-the-field issue. For those of you who don't understand how the Premier League rules work, all 20 teams get one vote, and an item comes up to vote on. They vote. If they vote on it, it's in. If they don't, it's not. And one of those items this year was the video assistant referee. And unanimously, they passed it, which is funny because in April, they unanimously shot it down. So 6-7 months change. And I mean, just today, watching the United Fulham game, I saw 2 moments where VAR was needed. United had a penalty called against them. And I mean, it's just very apparent that the ref just got it wrong. And shortly after, Fulham get a red card for just a very, very weak, soft challenge on Marcus Rashford. And those sort of things, while I understand the arguments against VAR, that it takes away that the mysticism, yeah. But at the same time, it also it just levels everything out. It makes it the most fair possible game it could be. But also, it would take away some historic moments. There's no hand of God goal if that happens. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, like I said, it does kind of take away some of that mystique and some of that mysticism. But I think that if you're on the opposing side of VAR at this point, you're probably going to end up being on the wrong side of history. I think it's almost a no-brainer. I mean, this is something that other professional sports have been having for 10, 20 years at this point. So it's no surprise that it's going to make its way into the game. So I do think it's funny that, like you said, it just
they voted against
it not even a full 12 months ago. Yeah, they had voted almost unanimously against it, and now they're for it.
Yeah, and I think it's just the first step because I know that Germany has VAR, correct? Yep. Italy has it, maybe. MLS has it. And go ahead.
I'm a proponent of it. I think where it gets a little dicey is technically it's not supposed to be used unless there was a clear and obvious error. But sometimes a referee will make a wrong mistake. They'll go back to the video assistant referee, realize that he had made the wrong call, but it's not in a situation where it was a clear and obvious error. It was just that he made the wrong call in a split-hair decision. Which technically is not how the rule is supposed to be used, how VAR is supposed to be used. So I think that's where it can get a little dicey. There's definitely things to iron out with it, but I'm definitely for it overall.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps up today's episode. I'm Fuller.
I'm Jonah.
And we'll see you all next week.